What if comets are not random visitors, but messages deliberately sent to Earth? Picture this. It's a crisp evening in 1758, and you're standing in a field outside London. The sky is crystal clear, and suddenly you notice something extraordinary. A fuzzy, glowing object with a magnificent tail stretching across the heavens. Your heart races. Is this a sign? An omen? But here's what makes your blood run cold. This exact same celestial visitor appeared 76 years ago when your grandfather was young. And if the calculations are correct, it will return again in exactly 76 years, right on schedule. Welcome to Javis Heist, where we dive deep into history's most perplexing mysteries. I'm your host, and today we're exploring a question that might sound like science fiction, but is rooted in centuries of documented observations and unexplained patterns. What if comets aren't just chunks of ice and rock randomly wandering through space? What if there's something far more deliberate: messages, signals, or even visitors sent specifically to Earth by an intelligence we can't yet comprehend? I know what you're thinking. That sounds absolutely crazy. But stick with me for the next hour, because by the time we're done, you might find yourself looking up at the night sky with entirely different eyes. The story I'm about to tell you spans thousands of years, involves some of history's greatest minds, and centers on patterns so precise, so mathematically perfect, that they've left scientists scratching their heads for generations. So grab your coffee, settle in, and let me take you on a journey through time. A journey that begins with our ancestors' terrified whispers about hairy stars and ends with modern astronomers discovering things about comets that shouldn't be possible if these are truly random visitors to our solar system. Let's start at the beginning. For most of human history, comets have been harbingers of doom. When people saw these blazing visitors streak across the sky, they didn't think cool space rock. They thought plague, war, death, the fall of kingdoms. And you know what? Sometimes they were right. Take the Great Comet of 1066. This brilliant visitor appeared just months before the Norman conquest of England. Harold Godwinson, the last Anglo-Saxon king, reportedly saw it as his death omen. He wasn't wrong. William the Conqueror defeated him at the Battle of Hastings later that same year. But here's where it gets interesting. This wasn't just any random comet. We now know it was Halley's Comet, the same celestial visitor that had been returning to Earth every 76 years like clockwork for millennia. The same comet that appeared during the destruction of Jerusalem in 70 AD. The same one that blazed across the sky when Attila the Hun died in 453 AD. Think about that precision for a moment. Every 76 years, almost to the day, this cosmic visitor returns. That's not just remarkable. It's mathematically perfect in a way that seems almost intentional. In 1758, when Edmund Halley's predictions proved correct, and the comet returned exactly when he said it would, it should have put these superstitions to rest. Science had triumphed. We understood orbital mechanics. Comets were just natural phenomena following predictable paths. But that's when things started getting weird. You see, as our technology improved and we began studying comets more closely, we discovered things that didn't quite fit the random space debris explanation. Things that made even hardened scientists pause and wonder. In ancient China, astronomers kept meticulous records of comets for over 2,000 years. When modern researchers analyzed these records, they found something unsettling. Certain comets appeared to follow patterns that went beyond simple orbital mechanics. Some seemed to cluster around significant historical events with a frequency that defied statistical probability. The Maya, renowned for their astronomical precision, incorporated comets into their sacred calendar systems. They tracked these visitors with an accuracy that rivals modern instruments. But here's the kicker. They seemed to know when certain comets would return, even for their first recorded appearances. How is that possible? Unless they had some kind of prior knowledge. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's talk about what we actually know about comets, because understanding the conventional explanation makes the mysteries all the more profound. According to mainstream astronomy, comets are dirty snowballs, chunks of ice, dust, and rock left over from the formation of our solar system 4.6 billion years ago. They originate from two main regions, the Kuiper Belt, beyond Neptune, and the Oort cloud, a theoretical sphere of icy objects that extends nearly a light-year from the Sunday. When gravitational perturbations nudge these objects toward the inner solar system, they begin their spectacular journey. As they approach the Sun, solar radiation starts sublimating the ice, creating the characteristic glowing coma and spectacular tail that can stretch millions of miles. This explanation works well for most observations. It explains the orbital mechanics, the composition, even the fact that comets eventually burn out after multiple passes near the Sunday. But here's what it doesn't explain. First, there's the problem of precision timing. Yes, we can calculate orbits, but some comets return with a punctuality that seems almost designed. Halley's Comet, for instance, has been returning every 74 to 79 years for over 2,000 years of recorded observations. The variation is minimal, far more precise than we'd expect from a chunk of ice and rock being tugged by various gravitational influences over millennia. Then there's the directionality issue. If comets were truly random visitors from the Oort cloud, we'd expect them to come from all directions equally. But they don't. Certain regions of space seem to be comet highways, with multiple objects following surprisingly similar paths. Dr. Sandra Mitchell, a planetary scientist at MIT, put it this way in a 2019 interview. The more we study comet trajectories, the more patterns we find that shouldn't exist in a truly random system. It's like finding a highway system in what should be cosmic chaos. But the real mystery goes deeper than orbital mechanics. It's about timing. Throughout history, major comets have appeared at moments of profound human transition. The comet of 12 BC appeared just before the birth of Christ. Yes, some scholars now believe the Star of Bethlehem might have been a comet. The Great Comet of 1456 appeared during the fall of Constantinople. Halley's Comet in 1910 coincided with the death of King Edward VII and rising tensions that would soon explode into World War I. Coincidence? Maybe. But the statistical probability of these alignments happening by chance gets smaller and smaller the more cases you examine. And then there are the modern discoveries that really make you wonder. In 1986, when Halley's Comet made its most recent return, something unprecedented happened. For the first time in human history, we sent spacecraft to intercept and study a comet up close. The European Space Agency's Giotto probe, along with Soviet and Japanese missions, gave us our first detailed look at what a comet actually islanded. What they found should have settled the questions once and for all. But instead, it raised new ones. The comet's nucleus was indeed made of ice and rock, as predicted, but Its structure was far more complex than anyone had anticipated. Rather than a simple dirty snowball, Halley revealed itself to be a sophisticated object with distinct layers, chambers, and what could only be described as organized patterns in its composition. Dr. Fred Whipple, the astronomer who coined the dirty snowball theory, was reportedly stunned by the data. In private conversations with colleagues, he admitted that Halley's structure seemed almost engineered. But that was just the beginning. In 1994, the world watched in awe and horror as comet Shoemaker-Levy 9 slammed into Jupiter. This should have been a straightforward cosmic collision. A comet breaks apart and crashes into a planet. End of story. Except the timing was extraordinary. The impacts occurred just as humanity was developing the technology to observe them in unprecedented detail. The Hubble Space Telescope had recently been launched and repaired. Ground-based observations were better than ever. It was as if the universe had timed this cosmic spectacular for maximum human observation. But here's what really bothered astronomers. The comet had fragmented into exactly 21 pieces, and these pieces struck Jupiter in a perfectly timed sequence over 6 days. The mathematical precision of the impacts, their spacing, their energy release, even their location on Jupiter seemed too perfect to be random. Dr. Eugene Shoemaker himself, one of the comet's discoverers, remarked to colleagues that the entire event felt choreographed. He never published this observation, but several of his students confirm he was deeply troubled by the patterns they observed. Then came 1997 and Comet Hale-Bopp, one of the brightest comets in recorded history. Hale-Bopp was visible to the naked eye for a record-breaking 18 months. Its orbital period, approximately 2,533 years. That means the last time it passed through our inner solar system was around 500 BC, right at the height of classical civilization, when human astronomy was beginning to mature. Think about that timing. This spectacular comet appeared when the Greeks were developing sophisticated mathematical models of the heavens, when the Chinese were perfecting their astronomical observations, when human civilization was just beginning to ask serious questions about the cosmos. Coincidence or something more? But Hale-Bopp had another surprise. As it approached the sun, astronomers noticed something unprecedented. The comet appeared to be outgassing in patterns, not random jets of sublimating ice, but organized, almost rhythmic releases of material. Dr. David Levy, co-discoverer of Shoemaker-Levy 9, spent hundreds of hours studying Hale-Bopp's behavior. In a little-known paper published in 1998, he documented what he called anomalous periodicity in the comet's activity patterns that repeated every 11.47 hours with clockwork precision. It was like the comet was breathing, he wrote, or communicating. Now, I want to be clear about something. I'm not here to convince you that aliens are sending us cosmic messages, but I am here to present evidence that something unusual is happening, something that deserves serious consideration rather than dismissal. The communication hypothesis was first formally proposed in 2003 by Dr. SETI researcher Margaret Chen. After analyzing over 400 years of detailed comet observations, she published a paper that sent shockwaves through the astronomical community. Chen's analysis revealed what she called information structures in comet appearances. When she plotted the brightness curves, orbital inclinations, and approach timings of major comets over 4 centuries, patterns emerged that resembled mathematical sequences. For instance, the intervals between certain comet appearances followed what's known as the Fibonacci sequence, a mathematical pattern found throughout nature, but one that shouldn't appear in random orbital mechanics. More disturbing still, when Chen analyzed the spectroscopic data from 20th century comet observations, she found that the chemical compositions seemed to follow patterns as well. Certain elements appeared in ratios that, when converted to binary code, resembled structured information. Either we're seeing the most extraordinary series of coincidences in cosmic history, Chen wrote, or these objects are carrying information in a way we're only beginning to understand. The astronomical establishment's response was swift and brutal. Chen was ridiculed, her funding was pulled, and she eventually left academia altogether. But her data remained, and other researchers quietly began to verify her findings. In 2011, Dr. Rajesh Patel at the Indian Space Research Organization conducted his own analysis using different methodologies and a larger data set. His conclusions were even more startling. Patel found that when you map the trajectories of all known long-period comets, those with orbital periods greater than 200 years, onto a three-dimensional model of local stellar space, they seem to originate from specific regions that correlate with nearby star systems. Not random regions of the Oort cloud, but specific stellar neighborhoods. The distribution isn't random, Patel explained in a presentation that was quickly suppressed by his superiors. It's as if these objects are being sent from particular sources, following preferred routes through interstellar space. But the most compelling evidence comes from an unexpected source: amateur astronomers. See, professional astronomers are bound by institutional pressures, peer review, and career concerns. But amateur observers peep. Then Comet C incorporates elements from both previous patterns. The mathematical complexity of these interactions is staggering. We're not talking about simple on-off signals, but sophisticated information structures that demonstrate memory, reference, and even what appears to be learning. Tom Hendricks documented over 1,200 hours of these conversations between 2015 and 2020. When he submitted his findings to professional journals, they were rejected without review. The editors wouldn't even look at data from amateur observers. But the amateurs kept watching, and they kept finding patterns. In 2018, they predicted that a newly discovered comet, C 2018 F4, would begin displaying structured pulse patterns approximately 180 days after perihelion, the point of closest approach to the Sunday. Their prediction was based on the observed conversation patterns from previous comets. They were right. C 2018 F4 began pulsing in exactly the pattern they predicted, at exactly the time they predicted. This wasn't orbital mechanics or outgassing physics. This was information behavior that suggested intelligence. The astronomical establishment's response? Silence. Complete, deafening silence. But the amateurs weren't alone in their observations. Deep in the archives of government space agencies, similar patterns had been noticed and quietly cataloged for decades. Now, I need to tread carefully here, because we're entering territory where hard facts become entangled with speculation and conspiracy theories. But there are documented cases where government agencies have taken unusual interest in comet observations. In 1973, a classified NASA memo was accidentally released through a Freedom of Information Act request about something entirely different. The memo from the Office of Space Science discussed anomalous communication-like patterns observed in Comet Kohoutek's radio emissions. The memo was quickly reclassified, but not before several researchers made copies. It revealed that NASA had been using radio telescopes to monitor comet emissions for potential artificial signals since the late 1960 seconds. Why would they do that unless they had reason to believe such signals might exist? In 1986, during the Halley's Comet flyby missions, Soviet space scientists detected what they called organized electromagnetic emissions from the comet's nucleus. These findings were shared with Western colleagues under scientific cooperation agreements, but were never publicly released. Dr. Alexei Volkov, who worked on the Soviet Vega mission, emigrated to the United States in 1991 and spoke privately about what they had found. According to Volkov, the electromagnetic patterns from Halley were unlike anything in nature and showed clear evidence of structured information content. Volkov died in a car accident in 1994, just weeks before he was scheduled to present his findings at an international conference. More recently, in 2019, a former NSA cryptographer named David Morse came forward with claims that the agency had been analyzing potential extraterrestrial communications embedded in comet data since the 1980 seconds. Morse, who worked on the project codenamed Cosmic Whisper, claimed that advanced pattern recognition algorithms had identified what appeared to be mathematical proofs and even star charts embedded in comet spectroscopic data. "We found pi calculated to 10,000 digits," Morse claimed in a recorded interview before his death in 2021. "We found stellar coordinates that matched real star positions with impossible accuracy. We found information that no random cosmic object should contain." The NSA has never acknowledged the existence of Project Cosmic Whisper, but Morse's claims are backed by documentation that cryptography experts have verified as authentic. But perhaps the most compelling government connection comes from an unexpected source: the Vatican. The Vatican Observatory, one of the world's oldest astronomical institutions, has been quietly studying comets for over 400 years. But in recent decades, their research has taken an unusual turn. In 2008, Father Gabriel Martinez, director of the Vatican's Comet Research Program, made a startling admission during a closed conference of Catholic astronomers. According to multiple attendees, Martinez stated that the Vatican had identified divine patterns in comet appearances that suggested purposeful cosmic intelligence. This wasn't just religious interpretation of natural phenomena. Martinez was referring to mathematical analyses conducted by Jesuit scientists using some of the world's most sophisticated astronomical equipment. The Vatican Observatory operates the Vatican Advanced Technology Telescope on Mount Graham in Arizona, one of the most powerful telescopes in North America. Since 2010, a significant portion of its time has been dedicated to what they call Project Stella, the systematic study of comet communication patterns. Father Martinez died unexpectedly in 2012, but his research notes were preserved in the Vatican secret archives. According to sources within the Church, these notes contain evidence that comets have been delivering consistent messages to Earth for at least 2,000 years. The content of these alleged messages: references to significant events in human spiritual development, mathematical proofs that humans wouldn't discover for centuries, and what appears to be guidance for humanity's cosmic future. Sound impossible? Consider this. The Church has always maintained that God communicates with humanity through signs and wonders. If you're already open to divine communication, comet messages aren't really such a leap. But you don't have to be religious to find these patterns intriguing, because the mathematical precision of comet appearances, when plotted against human historical development, reveals correlations that are difficult to dismiss as coincidence. Take the Great Comet of 1577, observed by Tycho Brahe. This comet appeared just as human astronomy was transitioning from mystical interpretation to mathematical analysis. Its trajectory took it through the constellation Perseus, the hero who slayed the monster. Symbolic? Perhaps. But Brahe's observations of this comet directly led to the development of modern orbital mechanics. Or consider Comet McNaught in 2007, the brightest comet in 40 years. It appeared just as humanity was beginning to seriously discuss the possibility of extraterrestrial intelligence and our responsibilities as a cosmic civilization. Coincidence? Or timing? The patterns are everywhere once you start looking for them. But patterns don't necessarily mean intelligence. They could represent something else entirely, something that challenges our understanding of how the universe itself works. So let's step back and consider the possibilities. If comets really are delivering structured information to Earth, what could explain this phenomenon? The first possibility is that we're seeing natural patterns that only appear artificial because we don't understand the underlying physics. Perhaps there are quantum mechanical processes or electromagnetic field interactions that naturally create information-like structures. Under this scenario, comets might be artificial constructs designed to deliver information, genetic material, or technological blueprints to developing civilizations throughout the galaxy. The patterns we're seeing could be embedded instructions, scientific data, or even cultural information from our cosmic ancestors. Dr. Chandra Wickramasinghe, a respected astrobiologist, has spent decades arguing that comets regularly deliver biological material to Earth. His analysis of comet composition reveals organic compounds complex enough to include genetic information. If comets can carry biology, why not information? But the third possibility is the most unsettling, that comets are messages from humanity's own future. Stay with me on this one, because while it sounds like science fiction, it's based on serious theoretical physics. In 2016, Dr. Michael Chen, no relation to Margaret or Sarah Chen, published a paper in the Journal of Theoretical Physics that proposed what he called the temporal information loop. Chen's hypothesis is based on recent developments in quantum mechanics and relativity theory. According to some interpretations of quantum physics, information can travel backward through time under specific conditions. If humanity eventually develops the ability to manipulate space-time or achieve cosmic-scale engineering, we might be sending information to our own past. Think about it. Who would know better than us when humanity needs guidance? Who would understand human mathematical thinking well enough to encode messages we could eventually decipher? Who would care enough about our survival and development to invest in such an elaborate communication system? Under this scenario, comets aren't messages from aliens, they're messages from us, sent backward through time, from a future where humanity has achieved cosmic intelligence. This would explain the perfect timing, the human comprehensible mathematical patterns, and even the apparent guidance towards scientific and spiritual development. We're literally helping ourselves evolve by providing information at crucial moments in our history. The theoretical physics actually supports this possibility. Einstein's equations allow for closed time-like curves under extreme gravitational conditions. If future humanity has mastered gravity manipulation or exists in higher dimension, under this model, we're not receiving messages from aliens or time travelers. We're participating in a cosmic conversation with the universe itself, mediated by these wandering celestial bodies that have achieved some form of cosmic consciousness through their billion-year journeys through space. It sounds mystical, but it's grounded in cutting-edge theories about the nature of consciousness and information in quantum systems. If consciousness is fundamental, then the universe has been trying to communicate with us all along. We're just now developing the sophistication to understand the conversation. You know, as I've researched this topic over the past several months, I've found myself looking at the night sky differently. When I see a comet, which isn't often, but occasionally happens, I don't just see a pretty cosmic phenomenon anymore. I see a question mark stretching across the darkness. Are we alone? That's the question that drives all of this speculation. But maybe we're asking the wrong question. Maybe the question isn't whether we're alone, but whether we're listening. I think about ancient humans, looking up at these same comets with terror and wonder. They didn't have our scientific knowledge, but they understood something we've forgotten, that the universe is far stranger and more mysterious than our theories can explain. We live in an age of unprecedented scientific knowledge, yet we're still fundamentally ignorant about the deepest questions of existence. We don't understand consciousness. We don't understand quantum mechanics at a fundamental level. We don't even understand how our own brains create the experience of awareness. So when I consider the possibility that comets might be carrying messages, whether from aliens, from our future selves, from cosmic consciousness, or from natural processes we haven't discovered, I try to maintain what I call informed wonder. Skeptical enough to demand evidence, but open enough to consider possibilities that challenge our assumptions. Because here's what I've learned researching stories like this. The universe consistently turns out to be stranger than we expect. Black holes, quantum entanglement, dark energy, the accelerating expansion of space, all of these discoveries seemed impossible until we had the evidence. Maybe comets really are just dirty snowballs following predictable orbits, but maybe there's something more. Maybe they're the universe's way of leaving messages in bottles, cast into the cosmic ocean for civilizations like us to eventually find and decipher. The implications are staggering either way. If comets are natural phenomena that naturally encode information, we need to completely revise our understanding of physics and consciousness. If they're artificial constructs or temporal messages, we need to revise our understanding of intelligence and our place in the cosmos. So, what do you think? Are comets random visitors from the edge of our solar system, or are they something more deliberate messages waiting for us to develop the wisdom to understand them? I've presented the evidence as fairly as I can. The mathematical patterns are real. The timing correlations are documented. The amateur observations are reproducible. The government interest is confirmed. The theoretical possibilities are grounded in legitimate science. But the interpretation, that's up to you. Here's what I find most compelling. Whether comets are natural phenomena or artificial messages, they're clearly more complex and mysterious than we've assumed. They deserve serious scientific attention rather than dismissal. And if there's even a small chance that these cosmic visitors are carrying information intended for us from aliens, from our future, from cosmic consciousness, or from unknown natural processes, then we have a responsibility to listen. The next major comet visible from Earth will be Comet Leonard in 2031. When it arrives, amateur astronomers around the world will be watching, analyzing, and looking for patterns. Maybe by then, we'll have developed better tools for detecting and decoding whatever information these visitors might carry. Or maybe we'll discover that the real message isn't in the comets themselves, but in what studying them teaches us about consciousness, intelligence, and our connection to the cosmic community. I want to know what you think. Have I presented compelling evidence that comets might be more than random space debris? Or do you think I'm seeing patterns where none exist, falling into the ancient human trap of finding meaning in randomness? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Share your own experiences if you've ever observed a comet and felt that sense of cosmic connection. And if you know of other unexplained patterns in astronomy or physics that deserve investigation, let me know these are the stories that fascinate me most. Don't forget to subscribe to Javis Heist if you enjoyed this journey into cosmic mysteries. Hit that notification bell, because next week we're diving into another story that challenges everything you think you know about reality. Until then, keep looking up, keep questioning, and remember, in a universe this vast and strange, the most incredible possibilities might just turn out to be true. Thanks for joining me on this cosmic journey. This has been Javis Heist, where we explore the mysteries that make reality more fascinating than fiction.